Welcome to Lighthouse KinShip's devotional video, Spiritual Fatigue and Weariness, Joseph. Psalms 105, verses 16 to 22, TPT. So God decreed a famine upon Canaan land, cutting off their food supply. But he had already sent a man ahead of his people to Egypt. It was Joseph, who was sold as a slave. His feet was bruised by strong shackles, and his soul was held by iron. God promised to Joseph, purged his character until it was time for his dreams to come true. Eventually, the king of Egypt sent for him, setting him free at last.
Then Joseph was put in charge of everything under the king. He became the master of the palace over all the royal possessions. Pharaoh gave him authority over all the princes of the land, and Joseph became the teacher of wisdom to the king's advisors. Today's Thursday, December 15th, 2022. Monica and I are here where bald cypress trees are draped in Spanish moss towering over the Sawmill Pond at Caddo Lake State Park, Karnak, Texas.
The end of the first devotion of spiritual fatigue and weariness. Joseph has been placed into the king's prison on false charges trumped up by Potiphar's wife, the brazen hussy. Scripture does not plainly say, but you do have to think that Potiphar knew his wife was a brazen hussy. Should not the punishment for a slave attempting to have sexual relationship with his wife be put to death and not put in prison? Did Potiphar truly trust this brazen hussy, or was God's providential hand still on Joseph's life? Did Joseph have a divine appointment that could only take place in the king's prison?
Genesis 39, verse 22, New King James. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever they did there, it was his doing. Genesis 40, verse 1 to 4, New King James. It came to pass after these things that the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt offended their lord, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was angry with his two officers, the chief butler and the chief baker. So he put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, in the prison, the place where Joseph was confined. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them, so they were in custody for a while.
God promised to purge Joseph's character until it was time for the dream to come forth. Are you in God's consuming fire? Has God given you the bread of adversity and the water of affliction like Joseph? Are you on the potter's wheel being shaped and molded to be placed in God's consuming fire, to be brought forth with shatter-proof character?
Genesis 40, verses 5, 6, 8, and 12 to 16, New King James. Then the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were confined in the prison, had a dream, both of them, each man's dream in one night, and each man's dream with its own interpretation. And Joseph came in to them in the morning, and looked at them, and saw that they were sad. And they said to him, We each have had a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. So Joseph said to them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell them to me, please. And Joseph said to him, This is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. Now within 3 days Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your place, and you will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand according to the former manner when you were his butler. But remember me when it is well with you, and please show kindness to me. Make mention of me to Pharaoh, and get me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away from the land of the Hebrews, and also I have done nothing here that they should put me into the dungeon.
Is Joseph spiritually fatigued and weary of the storm-tossed waters he has been in for years now? Has the storms of adversity and affliction given Joseph the character that can freely give forgiveness, love, and goodness when coming face to face with hatred, jealousy, and vengeance?
Genesis 40, verse 23, New King James. Yet the chief butler did not remember Joseph, but forgot him.
Has God forgotten Joseph? Has God given you a dream, but like Joseph, you have been forgotten? Are you spiritually fatigued and are a prisoner of weariness, waiting for your dream to come full circle?
Genesis 41, verses 1, 8, 9, 12, and 14, New King James. Then it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh had a dream, and behold, he stood by the river. Now it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all its wise men. And Pharaoh told them his dreams, but there was no one who could interpret them for Pharaoh. Then the chief butler spoke to Pharaoh, saying, I remember my faults this day. Now there was a young Hebrew man with us there, a servant of the captain of the guard. And we told him, and he interpreted our dreams for us. To each man he interpreted according to his own dream. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him quickly out of the dungeon. And he shaved, changed his clothing, and came to Pharaoh.
Joseph had 13 years of God's consuming fire, shaping and molding his character. However, Joseph's final test came a decade and a half later.
Genesis 50, verses 15 and 19 to 21, New King James. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, perhaps Joseph will hate us and may actually repay us for all the evil which we did to him. Joseph said to them, do not be afraid, for am I in the place of God? But as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring it about as it is this day, to save many people alive. Therefore, do not be afraid. I will provide for you and your little ones. And he comforted them and spoke kindly to them.
This concludes our devotional video of Lighthouse KinShip, Spiritual Fatigue and Weariness, Joseph. We cannot lead anyone else further than we have been ourselves, John Maxwell. The first order of things to be changed is me, the leader. After I consider how hard it is to change myself, then I will understand the challenge of trying to change others. This is the ultimate test of leadership, John Maxwell.
Monica and I thank you for traveling along with us here at the Lake Bistineau State Park, Doyline, Louisiana. And unfortunately, the lake has been infested with an invasive plant, and the Wildlife and Fish Department has had to drain the lake to fight this invasive plant. But unfortunately, there's not been a whole lot of rain in the area to refill the lake, and it's been kind of difficult for us to enjoy the lake from our campsite here when, as you can see, there's no lake behind us. Come along and journey with us by subscribing to our channel. Hit that little notification bell so that you won't miss our next stop. And please, give us a thumbs up, liking our videos, and help us to spread the gospel by sharing these videos on your social media platforms. Thank you for leaving your comments below on how these devotions are helping you, and also your prayer requests so that we know how to pray for you.